Okay, so we have an options contract here, and this options contract happens to be a put option, so it's important to know the difference between a put option and a call option. The put option gives the holder of the option the right to sell the underlying asset, or the stock in this case, at a predetermined price, which would be $85. They can sell it for $85 at any given time throughout the length of the contract. So the only time that the holder of the option benefits or gains or makes money on this contract is if the value of the stock drops below the $85, because that means that someone will buy it. They can sell it for $85 regardless of the market price. So if the market price goes up to $100, they would sell it for $85. But they, of course, wouldn't do that because it's presumed they don't own the stock yet. So they'd actually have to get the stock at $100. They would sell it for $85 and lose $15 on the transaction, which would be crazy. So the only time they value is if they benefit is if it drops below 85. Okay, so that's important to know because what happens is we're entering into this contract on January 7th. We're going to pay someone, the counterparty, to take on the risk that the stock drops. So if the stock drops, it's in our benefit, but the counterparty loses out on the transaction. They're going to say, you got to give me some consideration for that. And we're going to pay them $360 to hold that contract open for us till the end of July. All right, so what logically happens when we enter into this contract? And the argument is, well, I don't really own anything of value like an asset you would normally think of, cash or receivables or equipment or inventory, so should it show up on the balance sheet? And we've gone through and talked about that the value that shows up on the balance sheet is this thing called the option premium. And the option premium is a combination of two things, one being the intrinsic value and two being the time value. And we argue that that's the value, these two items added together, that should show up on the balance sheet. So when I buy this stock, this option, I enter into this contract on January 7th. I am going to give up cash, so I would credit cash for $360 because that's what I have to pay the counterparty, $360. And then we would want to break apart whether this thing has a value of what is the option premium, what's the intrinsic value, and what's the time value. That $360 you bought is the time value. It's the value of the contract. Someone's willing to hold it open for a period of time. So the option premium is that plus the intrinsic value. The intrinsic value is defined as the market price per share. In this case, on the 7th, they tell us the $85 strike price equals the price per share. So the strike price and the market price match. And what that means is at this point in time, there's no value in this contract. There's no intrinsic value. It's not worth anything for me to go and to buy a share on the open market for $85 and then sell it for $85. So there's no value. The intrinsic value at that point in time is zero. So the option premium when we buy or enter into this contract is $360, and we put that onto our balance sheet, and in this case it'd be labeled as a put option. So that's the first transaction on January 7th when we enter into the contract.